Okay, so we start with these little cheeks, which actually are put on just like the real thing, except they were plywood. A little glue on that side stake is important, and make sure that piece is open because that's where the little carburetor opening will go. Put a little glue where necessary up near the front, and a little on the sides, and then you plop it down there. And I guess I made sure that I got the little middle strake on straight, and then made sure that was pushed down and glued. Then started working on the edges. Pushed them a little with my finger, and then I took my little bamboo skewer and I kind of ran them down the sides. Took a couple times to do it, and things don't always work out perfectly. Like I still needed to put a little glue underneath here, missed a spot or something, and then I took the larger end of the bamboo skewer and rolled it down along the edge. Seemed to make a nice seal, and I think it'll look good underneath the black skin when we put it on. Make sure both sides are good and solid, and once they are, then we continue. But it looks really nice, and except for the real airplane being tubular steel and not balsa wood, it looks real. There's a little black piece that goes in the tail section there that's glued on. That'll become better when we put the stabilizer on. So I started to cut the bottom skin, and some of it has to be done freehand, some of it can be done with a ruler, but a lot of this is going to have to be done freehand just because there's subtle curves in there. You can see on going towards the tail, of course, is a real broad curve. But when you cut these things, again, just use a sharp knife and several passes. Don't do it all at once. So here I'm doing it by hand here, making sure it's open. And there she comes. Okay. Then the edge was a little bit funky, so I hit it with a little sandpaper, clean it up. Test fit, put it right underneath where the cowling goes. Then I add some glue and spread it out with my finger so it's nice and smooth. And then I started, after test fitting, I found out if I put it at the end where the tail post is, the rudder post is, that made it fit well. I'm using my fingers, making sure it's even, and then make sure it pops up to the top, and you can see it falls right where it's supposed to. So again, this kit is very well engineered. Makes you look pretty good, actually. So there it is with the bottom on. It's smooth. You can see that's where the tail skid is going to go, and there's little marks for where some handholds go on either side, and also there's a place for where the pilot, like a stirrup for him to get in to the side. Plus there's marks for where the landing gear is going to go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, ultimately. So I did end up sanding a little edges, although they weren't bad. They weren't really overlapping. But just to clean it up, make sure it looks pretty good. Make sure the edges are nice and where they're supposed to be. And there it is, ready to go. Now remember, we're going to be painting this anyway, but anyway, there it is, ready for the next skin. Now, I did skin this off camera because I had some technical difficulties. However, it isn't that exciting. The sides went on just like the bottom. The only difference being they fit very cleanly. The only difference being that part there where that stake is, and it makes that triangular, the piece. Oh yeah, there's the holes for the bottom wing. And there's the hole for the carburetor tubing in there. But just make sure that piece is nice and adhered. And you just basically take your fingers and you slide them along either side just to make sure that everything is actually glued. But it really was no different than putting the bottom on. There I'm just showing you kind of smoosh those down. So now these are more interesting. Now putting on the turtle deck on the back, cut it out. And you can see I had to put the stabilizer on. Had to build it. It was very easy to build. And then put it on before you put that turtle deck on. That's why I did that. Now the stabilizer, it's just another piece of thin balsa in there. And then it's skinned and folded over. And it's exactly like what we've done before. No amazingly different things. So that's why I didn't bother showing it. And then I glued it on the back of the fuselage, and it was ready to go. Now there's a little piece that has to go on the inside of the turtle deck, because you can see inside there. So it's kind of a buff color, and it's got the inside ring. There you go, you picked it up. It's got a little inside area where the cockpit combing is. And you just put that on, overlap it, make sure it's nice and even, and glue it down. And then you roll it like we've done before, either on a mouse pad or on your fat hand, in my case. Put a little glue on the edges where it needs to go. And then you just carefully put it on top. The hardest part is going to be making sure those edges attach and sort of curl around, and you don't have a lot of white showing. So again, this is going to be painted, but you may as well practice and make it right. So that lines up very nicely on that back piece. And then once that's on there, you just make sure everything else is even. And again, I'm kind of squeezing and kind of pulling around on things to try to make sure that you're getting those edges connected. And you can see I used some tweezers to kind of make either end, both sides right where the cockpit was, had to sort of be squeezed into place and dried. But ultimately they worked really, really well. But just got to sort of jigger with it and play around with it a little bit. I burnished it a little bit, made sure that the edges were clean. But you can see that turned out really well with just really a minimum amount of playing around. If there's any places that we don't like, we can sand them a little bit and even add some filler and primer before we go into painting it. Again, the tail skid goes there. There's a little hole for the tail struts, and then there's an accompanying hole on the bottom there right there on the fuselage. So that's where a strut's going to go for the tail on either side. And then you can also see where the control shrouds will come out for the rudder and the elevators. But yeah, it's coming together nice. It looks like a real triplane fuselage. Again, it's almost a shame I'm not going to use the color scheme. I also, when I made the stabilizer, I made the rudder, which was even easier. I even primed it already so I can see what it looks like, but it's going to fit right there. It's fun to do that because now you can see what it's going to look like. Now this is the piece that goes in the front where the machine guns are going to go in front of the cockpit. So same thing, it's got a piece that fits on the inside of it so that you can't see the paper, the white of the paper. And you just put that down, even it. I believe this one was super even. I did a little bit of black edging with a marker at one point, but basically it fit very cleanly, very nicely. And it's the same old, same old. You test fit it, and then you have to sort of twist it and make sure it's going to curve around on that top decking in front of the cockpit. So I roll it a little bit, and this, it's very easy to roll. I tend to over-roll them, and then they fit better, I think. Now, when I was test fitting it, there's a little line I hope you can see printed on the paper, that little white line, that fits perfectly with the edging of the decking. So that's going to be where I'll start gluing. Makes a nice key to glue. So I put my glue on where it's supposed to go, and then I think the first step is to grab it and align it with that little spot. So you can see I'm just getting it to line up like that. And then squeeze it and then start working my way over. Worked very well. And you just keep playing and make sure it's down and hard, solid over the cockpit, and make sure it's rolled over again. Get rid of some glue. I had to use tweezers again to make sure the cockpit edging near the rear cockpit combing was correct. In the real airplane, there's actually overlap. These are, again, this is like the real airplane. There are these pieces, I think they're metal on the real airplane. Might be plywood. I think they're metal, though. But they fold over just like this, and they kind of overlap. And there's where I have to sort of push it and make sure it's matching and kind of twist it with my tweezers so that they roll over. And then burnish it with my finger, and I can burnish it with a tool too. Again, when we start to paint, when we prime this, we'll be able to see if there's anything that needs to be sanded. But everything looks great. Only issue I found was, see the magazine holder and the gas tank, whatever that thing is, see how crooked it is? It's way off. I don't know why. You can see that I just did that to show you. I'm not sure why, but we'll work around that. But here's the whole rear section ready to go. Stabilizer's on. It's skinned. if, again, it actually looks pretty attractive. If I was going to continue using just the model kit, it would be ready to go in short order. So the next thing will be working on the cowling, I think, because that'll be a fun thing to show you how to do and fix it up. And then we'll finish our cockpit again and do our elevators, I suppose. But boy, it's on to the wings pretty soon. Looks cool.